Okay, we're off the Upland Greenway trail, and you can see the trail in the background. And we're now on the till plain. So the flat till plain with a lot of Glenwood, basically silty clay loams. So this is an alpha sol. It's fairly aqueic, has a high degree of soil moisture above the glacial till. And you can see they've torn this ground up around us, and you can still see the remnants of spring beauties that were once in the kind of the forest around here. You can see a lot of that here. And then you got over here you got a mustard. Okay. But this is pretty eroded. So it's been farmed for a long period of time. It's pretty heavily eroded. It's very typical of what you'll find on the till plain. So today I'm going to kind of focus on the soils that you find on the till plain. So the Glenwood series, the Mississinewa series, the Blount series, and the Pewamo. And we're going to hit a Pewamo up here in a bit. But let me put the camera down and let me show you a little bit of this soil. So I think we'll be close enough to the camera here, we can probably. But you can see there's very little organic matter in this soil. So this is a Glenwood. It's been probably severely eroded. And what you're seeing is mostly the B horizon. So it's a silty clay. So not a lot of organic matter in this soil. Let me punch another hole. Maybe get the camera a little bit more focused upward. Might help. Hopefully you can see me. Push another hole here. And here we have, same type of soil core. Very low amounts of organic matter, highly eroded, and because there's a lot of silt in this, kind of a silty clay, you're going to get pretty good levels of erosion. I'll pick one of these flowers so we can get a kind of a close-up. But these are the actually spring beauties. So the seeds are effectively planted by ants. So ants have been very busy out here. Kind of pick up, we'll walk a little bit across the landscape. Kind of get a feeling how we're walking a little bit up slope here. Kind of get a little bit of feeling for the landscape. Here's a good example of what the Glenwood silt loam would look like under native vegetation. So this has a pretty good slope to it, this part of the landscape. And the predominant tree species that we're seeing are the shagbark hickory. So we've got shagbark hickory. The understory is almost all bush honeysuckle and a little bit of this prickly ash. So we're getting a little bit of that. A little bit of that in the understory. But you can see the understory is dominated by bush honeysuckle. See that? See the shagbark hickory tree. And then even back here, quite a few Mayapples. So we just looked at a clearing. That was the Glenwood silt loam. And now we're looking at kind of native vegetation. Walking through this deer path down through here. It's a fairly dry site. So a little bit of slope on each side of this. We're kind of out on a nose of a slope. You can see the litter layer is fairly sparse. I can see a few hickory nuts, a lot of hickory leaves still, but a lot of spring flowers. So let me turn the camera around. I'm going to take a coring here. We're going to find a little bit better of an A horizon here, I have a feeling. Yeah, we do. Hopefully you can see this. This has been heavily eroded. They probably messed around out here a little bit in terms of farming, but you can see right here, there's definitely a lot better A horizon. See how dark it is? So there's more organic matter, more lure decomposition, more nutrient recycling right on this location. Okay, and you eventually get down, poke a little bit deeper hole here, get down to that B horizon. There's a lot more clay. And right now I think we've got a good example of the B horizon. You can see here, fairly good example. I'm going to pick up the camera and take a look at that. Okay, there's a lot more clay, a lot lower amounts of organic material. Poke a little hole here, see if I can do it for my knees. Maybe not. Yeah, this is a little bit better. You can kind of contrast that A horizon that's on the left to the B. So a lot more organic matter right here because it has not been eroded away. And once again, a nice complement of spring forbs, spring beauties, leaves of things like toothwort. It's a little bit past. Little hickory seedlings that are growing. Some raspberries that are coming up. This looks like maybe Pennsylvania sedge, that clump there. Looks like almost like grass, but it's a sedge. Nice ecological spot. The even age stand of shagbark makes me think that it was probably cleared at one time. Maybe if not for farming, but for a pasture. We can see over here the mayapple. There's all these mayapple here. I'm going to stop the camera here and we'll go to our next site. We're once again on the very last part of the end moraine, the first part of the till plain. And what you're looking at here is just recently worked soil. It's that Glenwood silt loam. So you can have up to 4% slopes across this field. And I don't know if you can pick it out, but the farmer is tilling it today. So the middle part of the field has yet to be tilled, and he's made probably 2 or 3 passes along the edge. And you can see how it's worked the soil up. So most likely this field is going to be in corn this next year. So once again, very typical silt loam soils that you find on the end moraine and close to where the till plain begins. And kind of looking behind us, we're at the Upland Greenway Trail where it turns and goes to the south. So I'm kind of out here in this farm field just giving you a little bit of a view of what the soil looks like when it's tilled. And here's the railroad track that goes underneath Main Street eventually when it gets to Upland. You can see all the Cercis canadensis, all the redbud trees are in bloom. And it's a fairly cool day today. for this time of year. But hopefully you've gained a little bit of understanding regarding this soil. It's an alpha sol, so it was a forested soil. Very little of the organic layer remains on this because it's been tilled so often. I think you can probably pick that up with what you're seeing on the camera. You can tell we're in a little bit different habitat right here. We've got a little bit of standing water. So we're in a different soil series here. This is the Palamo, which is a depressional soil that we find across even the end moraine and also across the till plain. Look up at the overstory, we're dealing with mostly cottonwood, eastern cottonwood. The trees that are retaining their lower branches, you'll see this one to the right, that's Quercus palustris, or pin oak. So it's a pin oak. These trees love these moist conditions. You can see over here there's a sapling that's growing right here. A lot of sedges. It's a Carex species of some sort, maybe Carex lacustris. I'm not sure. Look it up. You can see there's standing water. I'm going to walk this direction a little ways. These are the really wet areas on the till plain and on the end moraine. So super wet. Go back through. Very brushy. These areas are super hard to farm because they're very difficult to drain. But once they're drained, they're very productive. In fact, these soils classify out as mollisols. Some mollisol soils. I'm going to set up the camera and try to get a decent look at the soil core. But you can see from the forest floor here, it's going to be pretty dark. Set the camera up. Try to get the weeds away from it. This is a pretty dark soil. So once again, it's a mollisol, which is a prairie soil, but this was never a prairie soil. It was mostly a swamp forest. So pin oaks, red maples, very common. Another core here. You can kind of see the core. It's darker going from left to right, but still there's a good amount of organic matter down about 10, 12 inches. Hopefully you can see that fairly well. So these are the swell and swale topography. These are the soils that are found on the swales. And I might drive a little ways towards Hartford City and see if I can't take a few videos of some of the Blount and the Palamo soils that are found out there. The plant community is pretty diverse. We have sedges down here. This little plant here is a wild strawberry. This looks like a type of cinquefoil. Even gray dogwoods. And as we walk out of the low area, we're going to be walking up onto either a Glenwood or a Blount soil series. I haven't poked around much up here. But you can still see there's still pin oak here. But you're starting to see species that like a little bit better drainage. So if we go up here a ways, we're starting to see things like, well, a fence that I just found with my foot. You see an oak tree here. So much better drainage. So we're out of the Pewamo, probably in the Glenwood right now. A lot of bush honeysuckle. You can see that everywhere here. That's the common theme. East of Upland, on the way to kind of Hartford City, you can see out here across the landscape, this very low area. So what we're dealing with is mostly a Pewamo soil out here. So in many cases across the moraine, the end moraine, and also the till plain, you'll find these poorly drained Pewamo soils. And out in the middle of that, you have an emergent, basically an emergent wetland. And on the other side of the road here, you can see my take on the other side of the road over here. We have probably a combination of both Blount and Glenwood soil here. So I'd say the high ground where the guy's running the tillage equipment, that's going to be Glenwood. And then these lower, kind of lower slopes, probably Blount. I'll walk down here a bit. It's starting to rain a little bit, so hopefully we're not getting too much rain on the camera. All right, this lower area across the road is going to be all Pewamo. A lot more organic matter out here. So he's making a few passes, trying to beat the rain. 3 o'clock this afternoon, they say it's supposed to be raining pretty good. See where those houses are in the distance? That's up on the Glenwood. Where that forest is, that's a Glenwood. Down a little lower, you're looking at Blount. And then the lowest area here is going to be Pewamo. Just kind of walk back this direction. You can see it. So very little gets done out here. There's cottonwood trees right up to almost to the road. We'll stop up the road a bit. We'll see a little bit better examples of both Blount and Pewamo. Okay, we're out of the plain. Kind of look around a bit. This guy's just working up. This is the Blount series. We're kind of up on a little bit of a rise right here. If you look to the distance, you can see a dark organic soil up there. That's going to be Pewamo. So back behind us, all these larger oak trees, these oak trees are on the Blount. And where the farmstead is behind my pickup truck, it's that barn is a heritage barn. It's kind of an interesting barn. They just redid it about 5-6 years ago. But the Blount soil series will have these majestic old oak trees, a little bit of a rise. Probably it was cleared for pasture land, looking at how the open grown the forms of these trees. So this is going to be all Blount right here. Those are pretty good sized oaks. This is all in the Blount soil series out through here. And the forest, as it grades into the lower area, more than likely is going to be Pewamo soil, where it gets low and a little bit wetter. We're still on the Blount up here, but eventually it's going to get a little wetter down in here, and I'm already seeing that. So more than likely we have pockets of Pewamo in amongst this. Large oak trees here, Quercus macrocarpa, bur oak. Probably was a pasture at one time. Still some blue violets and some spring beauties. And then that taller plant is garlic mustard, which we find everywhere. So we're on the Blount soil series. I'll walk back to my truck here. But this is fairly productive farmland. So the Blount and the Pewamo, once they're drained, it's a lot flatter than we see on the end moraine. So the Glenwood, you see on the end moraine, has a little bit more topography. As you head towards Hartford City, as you head towards Ohio, we're out on this till plain. And the Blount is going to be an alpha sol. And take a look out here. But very little soil organic matter in the top layer, unlike the Pewamo. Okay, we're in the lower part of the landscape in the till plain, and this has been devegetated. We have a Pewamo soil series. See how dark it is? How the surface is really dark. A lot of organic material. And you can see right out here, probably 25 meters away, there's a drainage, kind of a drainage catchment basin. So they're trying to drain this low area, and even trying to get the water to go under the road a little bit. So they actually had to build the road up, the grade of the road, you can see the stop sign over there, to build it up over this lot darker Pewamo soil. It's pretty obvious as we're walking across. A little bit of wind today, unfortunately. But you can see they're tearing up the soil, getting ready to plant. Across here. So this is what the characteristic Pewamo soil looks like when it's drained. Once again, it classifies out as a mollisol, but it's probably a swamp forest, mostly a swamp forest. I'll stop it here. I'm gonna try to find my dirty window of my truck, but out across the landscape here, this is all Pewamo. You can see the color change in the distance to the Blount soil series. But this is all going to be Pewamo in through here. And we're going to go down the road just a tad bit here. You see how we're getting onto the higher soil? We're now on the Blount. So we went from a mollisol to an alpha sol. And then again, probably to another Pewamo. So before this was cleared, it was a pin oak, basically a pin oak swamp. And then everywhere you see a house, so we can go by this house here, they're up on the swell. So we talk about swell and swale topography. Okay, they're on one of the swells. Kind of bring you around here to my dirty windshield.